David Sinclair, a Harvard genetics professor and one of the world's top experts on aging, is 55 years old. But just look at him.
The first person to live to 150 years has already been born, and I said that about 5 years. What I've been trying to do is to activate my body's defenses against aging. And we know that sitting down and eating 3 meals a day is the opposite of that.
Hard to believe, right? Recent telomere tests suggest his biological age is closer to someone in their mid-20s. He isn't just studying how we age, he's actually reversing it and potentially unlocking the secret to not just living longer, but staying healthier and more vibrant as we age. And the secret? It's in the foods he avoids and some simple daily habits. So today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 foods David Sinclair refuses to touch to keep his body young, and the 1 daily habit he credits for his sharp mind and boundless energy. By the end of this video, you'll have a roadmap to potentially turn back your own biological clock by decades. Now, what do I want in return? Just your support. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And check out the links in the description for more tips. But before we dive into the foods, let me tell you a bit about what makes David Sinclair's research so groundbreaking. He's not just any Harvard professor. He's been at the forefront of studying aging for years. And while most of us believe aging is inevitable, like you get older and things just start to break down, well, Sinclair's research is turning that idea on its head.
Wrong. We have a new theory of aging. We used to think that antioxidants were the cure to aging. And if you go to the supermarket, you'll still get a lot of that bull. It's not true. Antioxidants have been really unsuccessful at lengthening the lifespan of anything, even a worm. It doesn't work that well. The reason is that there's much more going on.
He's found that aging is actually controlled by specific processes in our cells, particularly by something called sirtuins. These are proteins that play a huge role in how our cells repair themselves. But it doesn't stop there. Here's where David Sinclair's research really gets interesting. He's not just looking at our DNA, the blueprint we all have, but he's focused on something called the epigenome.
I work on are called the sirtuins, and they respond to all of the things that we do, the adversity, the exercise, the fasting. And this group of genes and these proteins that the genes make sense the environment, and when times are thought to be tough and could threaten us, they fight harder to keep our body safe, protected, and ultimately healthier and longer lived, even late in life. And what they're doing, these sirtuins, is controlling this structure here. They're doing a lot of things, I should say, but the main thing that I believe they're doing to make us live longer is controlling what we call
Epigenome is the part of our cells that tells them what to do with that DNA. Think of it like a dressmaker's pattern. The fabric is the same, but depending on the pattern, you get a shirt, pants, or a jacket. The epigenome gives instructions to our cells, telling them to become skin cells, brain cells, and so on. But here's the catch. Over time, these instructions can get a little scrambled, like when your computer software gets buggy and needs a reboot.
It's not the loss of proteins or defects in the cell membrane. These are all known to happen. But what's really going on is that cells lose their ability to control which genes should be switched on and off. When we're young, we are very pristine. Cells know how to be cells. Skin cells have the same DNA as a brain cell and a liver cell, and what makes them different is which genes are switched on and off, and we have about 20,000 of those. And these SIR genes that we found in yeast control that pattern. And the idea of the information theory of aging is that that pattern gets disrupted by insults to the cell, such as broken chromosomes, which we have now shown drives this process.
In fact, Sinclair and his team published a groundbreaking paper in Cell on January 12th, showing that it's not the DNA itself that drives aging, but how those epigenetic instructions get lost or corrupted. This is huge because it means aging isn't just about wear and tear. It's about losing the directions that keep our cells working properly. He calls this the information theory of aging, and it's a huge shift in how we think about getting older. What's wild is that Sinclair and his team were able to prove this by running experiments on mice. They were able to age young mice by introducing breaks in their DNA, kind of like mimicking the damage we accumulate over time from things like pollution or stress. And guess what? Within weeks, the mice started showing signs of old age, gray fur, less energy, even frailty. But here's the mind-blowing part. They also found a way to reverse that aging. By essentially rebooting the cells, they could restore the epigenetic instructions and bring back signs of youth.
If we tweak the epigenome, if we scratch that CD, if I'm right about the information theory of aging, what do we get? We'll get accelerated aging. This is a mouse that's the control in my lab. So we've tweaked this mouse in every other way except scratch its CD. At the same time, we took a sibling born at the same time and we, for 3 weeks, accelerated the scratches on the CD. We disrupted its epigenome and the cells started to lose their identity. The mouse didn't feel it. It's like getting an X-ray, you don't feel that. But what happened 10 months later was we got an old mouse. This isn't just a mouse that looks old. This mouse is literally 50% older than its sibling, even though it's genetically identical. These are twins born at the same time. One is old and one is not. We can drive aging as fast as we want forwards. Then the question is, if you can give something, can you take it away? And if I'm right, the answer is yes. First of all, let me show you about a minor tweak to age reversal. We found these sirtuins can defend against aging, but they can also reverse aspects. If we activate them.
This research is game-changing because it suggests that aging isn't set in stone. If we can find ways to reset those instructions, we could keep our bodies healthier for longer and even reverse some of the damage. But the big question is, what's actually causing this aging process to speed up in the first place? Well, a lot of it comes down to what we put on our plates. Certain everyday foods can actually accelerate this breakdown, corrupting those vital cellular instructions we just talked about. And the number one culprit? Sugar.
Yeah, I've avoided it as much as I can since I turned 40. I don't eat desserts unless I steal it. And then I look at sugar, again, it's not going to kill me, but I do think of it as a poison. It helps me get over it because our bodies crave sugar. It's how we evolved. Good source of quick energy. One of the things that it also does is it covalently, very tightly attaches to proteins and makes them malfunction or even become toxic.
Sinclair is clear on this. Sugar is the ultimate enemy. He says that one of the best indicators of how long you'll live is your blood sugar level. High blood sugar leads to a process called glycation, where sugar attaches to proteins in your body. Sinclair compares it to caramelization, like when sugar hardens on the surface, except this is happening inside your body. This process speeds up aging and even increases the risk of chronic diseases.
If you reduce the amount of sugar, the yeast cells lived longer. They protected the DNA, they boosted mitochondria, and they lived longer.
So sugar, you're saying, accelerates aging, and restricting sugar actually helps increase longevity.
Lower sugar is better, and fasting blood sugar is lower is better too, for longevity. So having high blood sugar is just known to accelerate aging. There's no question about it. But there's a couple of reasons. There's a very simple reason and a very practical explanation, which is that the glucose that circulates in your body can be used for fuel, but it can also inadvertently get attached to your proteins. And then when you've got this glucose attached to proteins, they malfunction. So that's part of this buildup.
But here's the surprising part. Your body doesn't even need dietary sugar. It can make its own glucose from your liver through the process called gluconeogenesis. So cutting sugar from your diet is not only doable, but it's also a major step toward keeping your body young. This next one might surprise you because it's so common in many households. It's bread. Sinclair avoids refined carbohydrates, which are basically just another form of sugar. Foods like white bread, pastries, and even crackers break down into sugar in your body really quickly, causing the same harmful effects as white sugar. He warns that these refined carbs age your body just as fast. Instead of reaching for white bread or sugary snacks, he recommends sticking to natural, whole foods. Simple swaps like whole grains or cutting back on refined carbs altogether can make a big difference.
First thing I cut out was a lot of carbohydrates. I used to eat bread every day. I cut that out and have found immediate improvements in my biochemistry.
Another food Sinclair avoids? Meat. And it's not just about the meat itself, but the fat that often comes with it. Instead of relying on animal protein, he gets his protein from plants, which he says can stimulate certain genes, like sirtuins. This shift isn't just theoretical either. There's plenty of research backing it up. For example, a study published in the International Journal of Epidemiology found that higher consumption of red meat, was linked to an increased risk of death from all causes, including cardiovascular diseases and cancer.
First thing I cut out was a lot of carbohydrates. I used to eat bread every day. I cut that out and have found immediate improvements in my biochemistry levels, particularly my glucose levels. The next thing I cut out was meat. I worked towards a Mediterranean diet, had fish, and eventually now I'm no meat. And that improved my numbers even better. Cholesterol, triglycerides all came down. And I have a familial history, genetics of heart disease. I have what's called Lp(a) high levels. Lp(a) is the worst. 30% of us have this. We're destined, if we don't do something, to have a short lifespan. That was very important, was the cutting out the meat. And it's not just the protein, it's also the fat that comes along with the steak and whatever that I was eating. And then the third change was the dairy. It made things even better. And what I think is going on, Shane, is that I was eating a large amount of protein, not just fat, but eggs and all that stuff.
Sinclair isn't saying you have to give up meat entirely.
It's that while many people are interested/obsessed with what they eat, the data that's come out of animal studies, at least, is it's far more important when you eat than what you eat. And this was a fantastic study a few years ago by my friend Rafael Da Cabo at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda. And he had 10,000 mice on different diets, hoping to find the perfect mix of carbs, protein, and fat. And it turns out that the only ones that lived longer were the ones that only ate once.
It's all about moderation and quality. He recommends a diet that's low in meat, and if you do eat it, he advises choosing responsibly raised options which are free from added hormones and antibiotics. This aligns with his broader philosophy on healthy aging, where the focus is on foods that enhance cellular health, are nutrient-rich, and reduce inflammation. Sinclair's research goes even deeper when it comes to food and longevity. He advocates for a diet rich in compounds like NMN and resveratrol. These are found in plant-based foods and help support key processes like DNA repair and maintaining NAD+ levels, which are crucial for keeping our cells youthful.
Which I try to follow is that plant-based foods will be better than meat-based foods. And I know that there are a lot of people who disagree. But one of the facts is, well, there's a few facts. One is that people who live a long time tend to eat those type of diets. Mediterranean, Okinawa diet, they're eating mostly plants with a little bit of meat and not a lot of...
The bottom line, while certain meats provide important nutrients like high-quality protein, B vitamins, iron, and zinc, Sinclair emphasizes that plant-based foods, especially those high in longevity-supporting compounds like resveratrol, NMN, spermidine, and fisetin, are the real heroes in the fight against aging. These compounds activate genetic pathways that protect our cells from damage and slow down the aging process itself. David Sinclair has also removed dairy from his diet to test how it would impact his health.
Pseudo-Mediterranean about 2 years ago, and which I thought was healthy. Red wine, cheese. It was a great life, but unfortunately
There's a lot of debate, especially on social media, about meat versus plants. I would love meat to be lifespan extending. That would be heaven. But it's not. You just look at those populations and people that live a long time. They are generally smaller, women, who don't eat much, who eat vegetarian. I mean, that's the fact. We can debate it all day, but there are these scientific facts that we have to pay.
By doing this, he noticed a significant reduction in his overall protein intake. This reduction affects something called the mTOR pathway, which is involved in how our cells grow and age. To simplify, mTOR acts like a switch that controls when our cells grow and repair. When mTOR is active, like when you're consuming a lot of protein, it tells your cells to grow, which is essential when you're young. But as we age, keeping mTOR too active can cause problems, like speeding up the aging process and increasing the risk of diseases, because too much growth can lead to cellular wear and tear.
That there's a mechanism that's called mTOR, little m, capital T-O-R, that responds to certain amino acids that are found in more abundance in meat. And when it responds, it actually shortens lifespan. And the converse, if you starve it of those 3 amino acids, mostly in meat, then it extends lifespan. And there's a drug called rapamycin, which some people are experimenting with, that does that. So you might be able to, I'm just saying this here from all my colleagues, we don't know the results here, but you could potentially take a rapamycin-like drug and counteract the effects of meat in the long run.
What's interesting about mTOR is that when it's less active, your body shifts its focus to autophagy, which is like a deep cleaning system for your cells. This process clears out damaged or unnecessary parts of cells, helping them stay healthy and functioning properly. This is similar to how a drug called rapamycin works in some studies. It suppresses mTOR and has shown promise in animal studies for extending lifespan by allowing the body to focus more on repair than constant cell growth. Sinclair's approach to limiting dairy and protein taps into the same concept of using diet to influence mTOR and potentially slow the aging process. And lastly, David Sinclair has also eliminated alcohol from his diet, stating that it's really not good for you.
3 years ago. And within 2 months, my inflammation went down, my CRP, my cortisol went way down, my blood sugar improved, my skin improved, my hair improved. I mean, my son accused me of getting hair transplants the other day, a hair transplant, but this is still natural. So I think that the diet's helping my overall appearance, but it's definitely helping how I feel.
However, for those who choose to keep alcohol in their diet, he recommends drinking wine, specifically from grapes that are rich in polyphenols, which are natural compounds found in plants that have been shown to activate sirtuin genes. Sinclair points out that Pinot Noir is a good example of a wine made from such grapes. But staying young isn't just about food. Exercise plays a huge role too.
I like to lift weights. Usually I'd have some weights just next to me. And so when I'm bored or feel a little bit restless and I've been sitting down, I'll just pick up weights. And, you don't have to go to the gym, just have these sitting around next to you. And I find that to be really great. And I do my exercises with a little bit lighter weight than a bodybuilder would. I haven't told anybody this, but this is what I do. I do a lot of reps, I'm doing this and this during the day. And I do many reps and I do them fast because that also gives me the aerobic exercise as well as builds up my muscle. Now, I have a gym, so I do more serious weights, but in my office, I'm doing high reps and it's aerobic and muscle building, which, I've been optimizing this for my body for the last 30 years.
According to David Sinclair, workout routine is all about intensity. He suggests aiming for sessions that leave you out of breath for about 10 minutes, 3 times a week. This kind of exercise boosts your metabolism and even helps slow down cellular aging.
And run. And in terms of the running, you don't have to run, first of all. You can row, you can do any exercise that you like, can be a game, but you'd want to lose your breath for about 10 minutes, 3 times a week. That's considered the minimum. And it induces what's called a state of hypoxia, which is low oxygen. And when you have low oxygen, a few things happen. Your mitochondria start to produce free radicals, and the mitochondrial response is also hormesis. We call it mitohormesis. And then you get activation of AMPK due to low energy and the free radicals. And that leads to this hormesis protective response. You'll have better insulin sensitivity, you'll have lower blood glucose levels, which is very healthy, and you'll start to build up muscle. Now, you also, not just building up muscle, what you also need to do is to have better blood flow. And hypoxia will induce a protein called hypoxia-inducible factor number 1. Bill Kalin, a colleague of mine at Harvard, discovered this thing, and he won a Nobel Prize a few years ago for it. And it's a big deal because hypoxia-inducible factor 1 controls very important pathways related to health and aging, not least of which is inflammation. And so by becoming a little bit hypoxic, you will turn on this defense pathway as well. And people ask me, how do you know when you've done enough hypoxia? Mm-hmm. Well, if you cannot carry out a conversation easily, you know you're in a good state. You want your heart rate to be, over 100, but you don't want to get above 150, certainly for somebody in their 40s and 50s. And so you can overdo it as well. But just 10 minutes is all it takes a few times a week. It's not that hard.
Sinclair also stresses the importance of breathing during exercise. He says to keep your heart rate between 70 to 85% of your max while focusing on rapid, controlled breathing. This approach not only boosts oxygen delivery, but also burns more calories and triggers adaptive responses in your cells. He even suggests incorporating workouts that leave you unable to speak without pausing for breath, inducing a hypoxic response that can further benefit longevity.
And it induces what's called a state of hypoxia, which is low oxygen. And when you have low oxygen, a few things happen. Your mitochondria start to produce free radicals, and the mitochondrial response is also hormesis. We call it mitohormesis. And then you get activation of AMPK due to low energy and the free radicals. And that leads to this hormesis protective response. You'll have better insulin sensitivity, you'll have lower blood glucose levels, which is very healthy, and you'll start to build up muscle.
And for those of you who love cold weather training, Sinclair is a fan of that too. He believes cold exposure strengthens the immune system and activates brown fat, which can increase calorie burning and improve metabolic health.
But now we know actually that one of the huge benefits you get from being cold is the production of brown fat. So what is brown fat? Brown fat, or often called beige fat, is found in babies. It's typically to allow them to stay warm because they don't shiver until they're about 1 year of age. And what was discovered about 10 years ago at Harvard by Bruce Spiegelman and Ron Kahn, a couple of my colleagues, is that adults also have some brown fat. And they discovered this with PET scanning. And they found that it mostly exists on your back, in your shoulder blades. And when you get cold, it revs up. You get more of this brown fat. And this is a good thing because brown fat is extremely healthy. It revs up metabolism. It burns white fat. And we think that there are these factors, little chemicals, little proteins that get secreted out of brown fat that make the rest of the body healthy as well.
So there you have it. The foods David Sinclair avoids and the habit he swears by to keep his biological clock ticking slower. Remember, small changes can lead to big results when it comes to longevity. Ready to take the next step in your health journey? Our upcoming video dives into the best foods to help manage and potentially reverse diabetes. You won't want to miss it. We'll explore how certain superfoods can help regulate blood sugar and potentially reduce your dependency on medication. It's a game changer for anyone dealing with diabetes or looking to prevent it. If you found this information valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated. And don't forget to check out the links in the description for more resources. Until next time, take care.